Welcome back to another FPL video and podcast. This will be the best wildcard team for Game Week 20, and it's worth noting that the second wildcard is now available for the first time this season, and if you didn't use your first one, it has been burned and you can no longer use that chip. But I'll be building the best 15-man squad for FPL going into Game Week 20 and beyond. Hope you had a great New Year celebrations for 2025 and enjoyed the holiday season. Smash the like button of this video if you enjoy my content, and subscribe to my channel. We're getting very close towards new goals like 31,000 subscribers, and check all the links in the description below for my Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, the Discord server, FPL League, Drafthound, as well as Spotify. You can also find me on Blue Sky by typing FPL Dylan, and the same goes for most social media platforms. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. My squad value is 103.9 million, but in terms of pure spending power, by removing every single player from my squad, I would have 102.1 million to spend on this wildcard team. Some of you watching might have even more funds available to you, and others will have even less, but I'll discuss some alternatives as we go along for each position. I'm going to start off with the two goalkeepers. There's yet another change between the sticks, but ultimately when we kind of pinpoint the best options in the game, the same names are going to appear. After Nottingham Forest 2-0 victory at Goodison Park, Sales has leapfrogged Jordan Pickford as the number one goalkeeper in the game based on FPL points, and I think it's between those two to really have that set and forget option until the end of the season. And I have gone for Sales because of value, and it has made this overall squad easier to afford. But if you have more money available, I still think Jordan Pickford might be even better, but that 0.2 million in price, and also comparing a cheap Everton defender with one of the Forest assets you can get around 5.1 million or perhaps 4.7 million, makes going for Sales a very safe and also secure option, which also means you find even better value between the sticks. But I still like Jordan Pickford a lot, and in isolation, he might still be number one for me, as I discussed back in the summer. David Raya is another good option, but it wasn't a clean sheet for Arsenal at the GTEC Stadium in the 3-1 victory, and I still think Raya is right up there, and he would be in my podium of the best goalkeepers in the game. Onana, Alisson and Sanchez would also complete the so-called top 6, but Sanchez being benched against Ipswich Town does put him down the pecking order, and we saw something similar against Southampton not too long ago. But the backup at the moment is going to be Areola until Fabianski is back. Then he would be the set and forget backup goalkeeper until the end of the season, which I have discussed for many wildcard videos now. Otherwise, you're looking at the other options. Fraser Forster, I just wouldn't go anywhere near him. I don't think Spurs will keep many clean sheets, and I said that once Vicario's injury happened. And you also look at the others. Martin Dubravka might be the best in terms of 4.3 million goalkeepers and below, but Newcastle could be doubled or tripled up on, and Nick Pope should be back fairly soon, within the next month or so. So that's a very short-term play, and I don't think that's worthwhile on the wildcard, especially for a goalkeeper. That mega haul by Trent Alexander-Arnold has been coming, and against West Ham, maybe it was a bit surprising, but ultimately the Hammers have been a poor team this season, and Liverpool put them to the sword with that 5-0 victory, and Trent got maximum bonus points there through his goal and the clean sheet. Now, I still look at him compared to Van Dijk and Gabriel, and he won't score as many goals as those two, and Gavardio would be another premium defender who will score more. But I do like Trent's creativity, and the underlying stats have been terrific all season, and I've always mentioned this. And with Saka's injury, it's easier to spread the money around, and that's why going for Trent is worthwhile. Although if you compare his value to Aina, Gabriel or Virgil van Dijk, you could still argue that Trent doesn't offer as much value as those three when you compare points per million. But Trent is going to get those massive hauls. He's a very exciting defender to own, and right now he is one of my priorities to bring in for my FPL team. Next up, I'm still going to go for an Arsenal defender, and Gabriel remains the best option, especially after during Timber's suspension. He picked up his 5th yellow card of the season against Brentford, so he's going to miss the trip to Brighton and Hove Albion, so that's going to be a big loss for Arsenal, but Gabriel remains the best option there in the heart of that defence. He's got by far the most goal threat, and he's been producing a lot of returns recently until that blank against Brentford at the GTEC Stadium. I'm going to go for some cheaper options now, but there is certainly a debate to be had about investing more money in that defensive line and going for free premiums. I think 2 is the sweet spot, and Trent and Gabriel remain the best options in this position. Gavardio will score goals and sometimes get some massive returns, but Man City are woeful defensively, and they considered 3 big chances against Leicester, and were a bit fortunate to keep that clean sheet. But I'm going to go for Anthony Robinson, who has 7 assists this season. He got another one against Bournemouth in that 2-2 draw, and Robinson has been, for me, the best left back in the Premier League this season, although Lewis Hall would be right up there in that category, and he's another one to consider when building your wildcard team, but he actually doesn't make it here, which could be surprising. And if you've got the extra funds, you could go for Martin Dubravka over Areola, as they're both short-term options as the backup goalkeeper, and ideally it would be Fabianski between the sticks to accompany Sells, Pickford or Raya as your main choice goalkeeper. But I'm going to go for another similarly priced defender compared to Robinson, who is now 5 million, by the way, and despite the blank and the disappointing performance, missing some big chances against Southampton, I think Daniel Munoz is a very exciting pick for the next 6 to 8 game weeks, as Crystal Palace are top of the fixture difficulty rating, and he's got decent number of shots, especially inside the box, and 7 big chances for the Colombian, which I think was actually turned into 8 after the weekend. So he's a very good investment, and he's my favourite Crystal Palace asset, even over Eze and Ismail Assar. But let's complete things with a cheaper option here, who could double in game week 24 or 25, just like Trent Alexander-Arnold, with that Merseyside derby being reallocated to that time frame. Mykolenko for me offers great value, and I personally had him until very recently, and he started getting some big returns with 7 pointers against Arsenal and Chelsea in recent weeks. But he's a very good investment, and you could also go for Pickford in goal and double up on that Everton defence. But I think one is enough, and like I mentioned earlier, instead of Sells, you can go for Pickford, and then Aina or Milenkovic instead of Mykolenko. Another budget option would be Nico Williams, who has started the last 5 Premier League games for Nottingham Forest, and they've won all 5 of those matches, and they're currently 3rd in the Premier League table. But I think Milenkovic and Aina are more secure. They'll get more goal contributions and bonus points, so it's worth the extra millions to go for those two if money is no issue for you. But Nico Williams is certainly worth considering, and the same goes for Castagna or Joachim Andersen if you can't afford Robinson, for example, and Lewis Hall is right up there amongst the highest scoring defenders in the game. So that pool of defenders is what I'd consider: Trent, Gabriel, Robinson, Munoz, Mykolenko, one of Castagna or Andersen, and also looking into other Forest defenders. I think those are the options you should really consider in this position. I'm less interested in Levi Colwill, and even with the likes of Saliba, Jurriën Timber, they're good options, but it's worth going for Gabriel and spending the extra millions on that goal threat. Mohamed Salah's had the best start to a Premier League season we've ever seen in the 3 decades of this competition, and he's producing so many double-digit hauls. In fact, when he doesn't get 10 plus points, it's actually very rare. He's only blanked on 3 occasions this season, and only twice has he produced 9 pointers and not been able to get 10 plus points, because he's getting a goal combined with an assist. That's happened on 8 occasions this season, and there's going to be even more instances throughout the campaign. He is essential. It's very rare for me to say that, but he is in that sort of mode where he is a permanent captaincy option, and you will rarely be disappointed by the Egyptian. Another midfielder I would class as essential, but not to the same level as Salah, of course, is Cole Palmer, who blanked against Ipswich Town and hit the woodwork twice. It was a bit unfortunate in that game, but his performances have been so consistent for Chelsea since Game Week 7 last season when he made his first start for Chelsea, and of course the rest is history there. He has been a terrific signing for the Blues, and I would definitely go for these two to form your midfield. But what about the other 3 slots in this position? That's where things get very interesting. Despite some poor fixtures on the horizon for Brentford, I would still go for Bryan Mbeumo, who scored against Arsenal and gave the Bees the lead. He is such a consistent player with only 2 blanks in home matches, and when you compare Mbeumo to the other midfielders in this game, they're not going to offer you the same consistency in terms of returns, the double-digit output, the bonus points, the talismanic figure, being on penalties, and also some decent underlying stats to boot. The only downside for me is the fixtures, but he just scored against Arsenal, one of the most difficult games Brentford will have for the entire season. They do have Liverpool coming up very soon, but I look at Man City, that is actually a good fixture on paper right now for Mbeumo and those Brentford attackers like Wissa. So I think he's worth keeping, and it's Southampton away next, who have been competitive in recent games, but Mbeumo can still go there and get a goal or an assist. Although you could say with Brentford, they've got the worst away record of any team in this division, and maybe in some of these away matches you will be disappointed by Bryan Mbeumo, but he's been fairly decent on his travels, and I think he's worth investment in this midfield, especially if you have some value tied up in him and you've owned him for several months. But I'm also going to go for a similarly priced midfielder, and my preference is Anthony Gordon. The other one I'd look at is Luis Diaz. He's my favourite Liverpool attacker to accompany Mohamed Salah, but it's also worth considering the assistant manager chip if you want to go for Arne's slot around Game Week 24 or 25 if Liverpool double. I think it's really important to leave that Liverpool spot open to make it so easy and seamless to go towards that triple up with Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Arne Slot. But Diaz would be my preference in terms of another Liverpool attacker. His minutes might be frustrating at times. He'll be on the bench or be subbed off early, but it won't be as bad as Diogo Jota in my opinion. And Cody Gakpo up front might be the most secure in terms of minutes. He'd be another option and rank just below Luis Diaz for me, but I just wouldn't go for Jota at this moment in time. And to complete this midfield, this might seem crazy, but I'm going to go for the suspended Morgan Rogers. I think he's the best budget midfielder in the game, and you'd easily bench him this week and then reintroduce him into your starting 11 in the coming weeks. And I think he's the best Aston Villa asset, even over Ollie Watkins, who showed what he could do against Brighton Hove Albion. But Rogers offers so much value at this price point. You've also got Semenyo, Kluivert, who's now back from suspension, and a few others here and there, like Jacob Murphy, Enzo Fernandez, and maybe Ismail Assar. But Morgan Rogers for me remains the best budget midfielder. It's another wildcard video where Chris Wood features, and I think Nottingham Forest are worth doubling or tripling up on this season. Now you've got Elanga and Gibbs-White, who are decent options in the midfield, but if you are looking to cover that attack, Chris Wood is a talismanic figure. He gets so many bonus points, and whenever he scores, he's going to get at least 1 or 2 bonus along the way, and on a lot of occasions, he'll get maximum bonus points like he did against Everton in that 2-0 win. He got the goal and the assist, a fantastic finish to give them the lead, and then a good assist, really showed a lot of composure there to kill off that game. But look, Elanga at 5.1 million isn't bad. I think he's gone up to 5.2 million now, and Gibbs-White will get a lot of bonus points as well, but the consistency of the output won't be anywhere near as good as Chris Wood, and I think he's one of the best forwards in the game, probably second right now. And once Matheus Cunha is back from suspension in Gameweek 21, he would be another one I'd look to invest in this forward line. But because he's suspended, and you've also got Morgan Rogers in this setup, I wouldn't go for Cunha as well just yet, and Cody Gakpo would be the differential forward who is also worth considering. But I'm going to go for something a bit simpler here. Isak is the best forward in the game right now. He is scoring in every single game virtually, and I went quite early on him, but we had those issues, of course, with the yellow flag going into the Liverpool game, and I kind of got burned by that transfer. But ultimately, I bought him back, and I made amends for those problems of transferring him in and out at the wrong time. And I think Isak is just fixture-proof, and Newcastle are the most informed team in the league besides the obvious Liverpool. They're winning every single game, scoring multiple goals and keeping clean sheets in the process, and Isak is the best by far in that Newcastle team. You'd probably put Hall second when ranking their assets, and Anthony Gordon in third. I definitely don't mind doubling up on that Newcastle attack, which I did back in Gameweek 1, by the way, and I also went for Lewis Hall, but once again, I invested in the Toon at the wrong time. But let's complete the squad with a surprising pick. I'm not a big fan of this player, but he's 5.5 million and offers great value. The next 3 fixtures look fantastic for Fulham, and that's going to be Raul Jimenez. But rotation with Rodrigo Muniz is still possible, and I'm not going to forget that. And ideally, you'd go for Jackson or Cunha instead, but there's also a big issue of budget here, and it might require a downgrade in another position at some stage very soon. But I think the target with this squad will be to upgrade Jimenez to Cunha, and that will be a set and forget option until the end of the season. The starting 11 would include Sells in goal against the Wolves side without Matheus Cunha, and a backline of Trent, Gabriel and Robinson, which is arguably the best you can build in FPL. And the same goes for this midfield with Palmer, Mbeumo, Salah and Anthony Gordon. You're going to get consistency, double-digit hauls, especially from Palmer, Mbeumo and Salah. I think with Gordon, you're most likely going to get the 5 and 6 pointers on a lot of occasions, but that's still better than a lot of the blanks you're seeing from many midfielders in FPL right now. Chris Wood, Jimenez and Isak is a solid front three, but as I mentioned earlier, the plan would be to upgrade Jimenez to Matheus Cunha in the coming weeks, and that could be in Gameweek 21 or 22, but in a lot of scenarios, you would have to downgrade somebody else in this setup, and that could be Anthony Gordon in this case, or Brian Mbeumo, and if not, you might have to sacrifice Gabriel in the process. But the bench includes Areola, Mikalenko, Munoz and Rogers. You've got squad depth with this team, so you can allow for that suspended Morgan Rogers in Gameweek 20. He's picked up his 5th yellow card against Brighton, and also gave owners a parting gift, you could say, with a double-digit haul, but I still think it's worth including him in this wildcard team. I just think he offers more consistency than Semenyo and all the other options you'll find at a similar price point, but you do have options. That's one thing you can definitely say. It's not like Rogers is an absolute standout like Cole Palmer was last season when he started the campaign at 5 million, but I'd argue that Rogers is still the very best option, just not much better than the rest of the competition. Now, according to the website FPL Team, the expected points is 61.2. And one thing I was looking at is instead of Raul Jimenez, possibly upgrading him to Cody Gakpo and then having your Liverpool triple up. And that would require a downgrade elsewhere. And it would either be Mbeumo or Gordon making way. And this is where you go for another budget midfielder. And Ismaila Sarr could be the solution. I think Gordon's form over Mbeumo might give him the slight edge, but I still like Mbeumo's talismanic status in that Brentford team, and I wouldn't like to part with him against Southampton away. I've still got him in my own setup, as I'll discuss in the upcoming team selection video. But let's now head over to Drafthound and see what they're suggesting for the best wildcard squad, and let me know your thoughts on my wildcard team down in the comment section below. As always, there is a link to Drafthound in the description below, and many of you have signed up using my link, and I have to say, this is a great wildcard team. Jordan Pickford is the main goalkeeper with Dubravka as the backup, and as I mentioned before, if you don't go for one of Gordon or Lewis Hall, I think Dubravka is currently the best budget goalkeeper to be your backup, but it's going to be a short-term solution. They've gone for Trent, Howson and Lewis Hall, who for me is the biggest omission from my wildcard team. He has been in phenomenal form and I think he's worth investment, maybe over Munoz in terms of my wildcard squad. And they've gone for Salah, Palmer, Diaz, Bernardo Silva and Savio. Now, I have to say the Brazilian was very impressive against Leicester City, but I'd be very careful about investing in Man City right now, despite some promising fixtures over the next 4 game weeks, because I think Leicester could have gotten a result in that game. With more quality, they would have converted more of their chances, and Man City was still there for the taking. They didn't control the game, as we saw in the past with Rodri there, and they've gone for Isak and Chris Wood up front. That's a great front line, and the bench includes Dubravka, Jimenez, Aina, and Chalobah. That's a very strong team. I'd go for Munoz over Chalobah if you can. The same goes for Kirkes over Howson, but I don't think Bournemouth are worth investing in fresh now because their fixtures are looking very poor at the moment, but they are a good side, and I don't mind Howson or Kirkes to be fair, but I'd rather go for Lewis Hall and all the defenders I discussed in my wildcard team. As for the captaincy, I'd keep it simple. With the form Salah is in and the way Liverpool are playing, I think Salah is currently the permanent captain until things change and the wheels fall off, but maybe the likes of Isak or Palmer could be nice alternatives for the armband. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. I promise to get this to the 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 31,000 subscribers. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. And there's currently a 20% discount on Patreon, and that's going to be lasting for another week or so. And you can also join the Discord server, the FPL League, check out Drafthound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It goes a long way to support my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 20, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.